So here's a little agenda for today. I will give you a little more of an intro to MASQ Network, show you a sneak peek of our Gemini software. We'll go over the POAP, which will give to all of you wonderful attendees a little update for the community, and we'll open it up for AMA questions. Just a bit of housekeeping. If you guys can keep your guys and gals, if you can keep your mics on mute, unless you want to ask a question, which we'll cover in the AMA section. So you can unmute, but we'll also be answering some of the text questions that were sent through for us. So for those of you listening who don't know much about MASQ Network and the vision of our project, at the project core, we're pretty much trying to tackle the real world issue of online censorship and reduction of modern privacy. And we're doing it in a way that's completely unique in the space from what we've seen. So sure, there's lots of other great projects out there building different solutions and different ways to sort of address some of that issue now. I've pretty much tried to look at all of them. I still really believe that without being biased, we have a very unique approach and a very, very fundamental base layer that we're building to make it just more than a simple product, to operate on a privacy network. So while most other products out there, like traditional VPN and Tor, they simply just allow a user to consume a service through a secure connection, MASQ Network aims to become a living, breathing, self-healing mesh network. So not only will users be able to browse and serve content from the current World Wide Web, but it'll also provide a foundational network protocol for dApps, communications, and even blockchain data to be routed to anyone, anywhere, and without the need for a centralized entity or single point of failure. So MASQ Network is much more than just a way for people to have a superior privacy internet tool. It stands to be an ecosystem. So it's built on the network of users running the software. So today you'll learn a little more about that core software that's being built to achieve this, and that's called MASQ Node, and the version in development right now is called Gemini. So we've released a software progression outline. So we've moved on from our Neo, which was the first initial GUI version that we built. We've now moved to the Gemini one, which has had amazing progress recently. So with that Gemini version in mind, I'm going to show you a Discord exclusive look at the work so far. This video has not been released publicly yet, so you're the first to see it. And this is actually the user experience for Gemini when it gets released to the public. So it shows a full onboarding process from start to finish and what it'll look like for a brand new MASQ user to run the software and get online. Wow, who enjoyed that? Was it worth the tries to get it to go?
Hell yeah.
Nice. Well, we had a great team member who did a beautiful edit of that and voiceover. So yeah, that is a sneak peek of what we're building. So all of that is currently in place. We're hooking up the components in the back end of it. And that will be pretty much what a new user will experience. So pretty exciting. That's really been a lot of the work in the last couple months with the UI team and our amazing UX UI designer, Sui Yui. And I think he's in the AMA as well. So yeah, so everyone loves NFTs. It's a big craze these days. I thought that POAP is an awesome concept. I reached out to their team as well. They gave us a little bit of help setting it up. So those of you who are in this voice AMA right now, you can go over to the POAP channel in our Discord if you want and type in the code, and it will generate an NFT claim code for you to get them. You can do that now once the POAP bot sends the open welcome message. The code is Gemini27, all lowercase. So you can go ahead and check that out. Cool. So if you do miss out on this, like there's only a certain amount that the bot will issue. We do have a second chance at that for people who have come late, or maybe will watch the recording of this. So a brief community update, and then we'll jump right into some questions and taking some live as well from anyone participating. So a little community update. On the public front, you guys probably have seen a lot of things going on, active on our socials. So just to round off a bunch of things on the public front as well, we've expanded liquidity onto SushiSwap. We evolved our user base onto a very active Discord channel, which you're all in now, which is working really great. And we've launched several community promos. There's some amazing artwork talent out there as well. You might even see a new profile picture from myself, which we had one of the awesome artists. I asked him personally to help me with that and make that for me. So shout out to Rit from the Alchemist community. He's an awesome artist, and I encourage anyone who wants any custom work to go to him. We're incredibly lucky to be invited into the Crucible Aludel Rewards program by the Clever Alchemists over in the Alchemist community, and we've created a lot of good connections along the way. But all that aside, a lot of that's all, we're constantly pushing that into the public eye for those of you to keep engaged. So on the development side, that's what's often ticking away in the background. It's not so much on the forefront unless you're more technical and you're watching our GitHub, or you're looking at our cardboard, or possibly just jumping into some of our testing channels. So there's some of that information that we're going to push out soon as a formal update, but there's a large amount of work that's gone into that video for that Gemini demo, both on the front end and also in the back end, as well as the Rust code base. So all the developers are continuing to harden certain aspects of the code, and they're finishing a really important component right now. We call it the auto map component. Those of you who have followed us know that port forwarding is part of the software, so you guys would think of it as port forwarding. Some of you call it UPnP. Basically, it just means we want to take that part out for setup to make it automatic, which isn't the easiest thing to do. So we're expecting to handle that all within the software. That is almost done. It's about 90% done, and then we can implement it. So we do want to have that ready from the code side in the Gemini software. So that was a lot of work over the past few months. So all that's been made possible by the amazing developers we have. Also in the last few months, we've onboarded 2 more developers who've been helping with all this work. One of them's been in the front end user interface for Gemini, and another has recently been onboarded into our Rust team, and they've just completed their first card with the core developers. So that's pretty exciting too, and I'm sure we'll discuss some more very soon. So with that, I'll jump into some questions. So what I might do is because you guys are all in here in the voice chat, I might do one from someone who does want to come on live, and then I'll do some text ones, and we'll just alternate. And some of our admins here will probably help moderate this. So is anyone wanting to ask one now, straight off the bat? First victim. Don't be shy. All good? Well, I will grab one from our text questions. We got a whole bunch from Twitter as well. But don't be shy, and if you have questions off of one of the ones I'm answering, just feel free to sing out. Let's see. So number 1, first question. Everyone's going to ask this question. When is public beta? Well, all I can say is public beta is going to be available when Gemini is tested and stable for public. But a follow-up question from that same point, I think it was Ryan Crypto from Twitter. Will the public beta use test ETH, or will it use the MASQ utility token? Very good question. It's very likely we may even have another network to test on. So I won't say much more about that in detail, but what we do want to have is when the public version is available, that there'll be multiple networks live. So it'll be a test network, so people can just go ahead and test it on Ropsten. And also there'll be a live mainnet network, and the team will provide nodes on both just so people can test it. But I would expect that the most active network will, of course, be the mainnet one, because that's where the real utility token is being used. So just a little, a little, basically a parallel set of networks for people to test on. So thanks for that question, Ryan Crypto. Let's see, what else we got here? From Renelvis, will there be onboarding functions in the Node software for growing the network? Absolutely. You saw that whole process on the Gemini video, which is really cool. It's going to take care of all the steps for people to onboard, because we know that there's a large variety of users we're going to see. Not only technical ones, maybe even technical people that want to run it without a GUI. They'll be able to do that from command line, or even a guide that we're going to make for people who want to run cloud nodes. So let's say someone is quite technical, they want to run it in a virtual server, such as an AWS cloud instance or DigitalOcean, any of those sort of cloud providers. We're going to build basically a node as a service, as we're kind of playing around with that name, where someone can spin that up basically without a server and run it. And obviously soon, once that goes live, people will start to see, wow, I can run an instance for X amount of cents a week or whatever from the cloud provider, and then it's actually generating quite a bit of traffic on MASQ. So we'll definitely see that evolve very quickly. But the onboarding function is definitely being built in. We know from a lot of testing that that was always the obstacle for users to come in and become part of the network. So last I checked, it was under 15 clicks to go through from start to finish and connect to the network, as long as everything connects and sets up properly, which is pretty cool. Definitely a lot easier than some of the tech out there. So that's a good question from Renelvis. Any voice questions? Anyone who's not shy want to jump on the mic?
All too scared.
The question is not at this specific.
All right. If you think of one, let me know. We've got a whole bunch of other ones though, so I'll go through these. Is the team considering a governance feature for the MASQ token, and at what point can we expect it? Very good question. We always had plans to further decentralize ourselves as a team and as a project. So it's very likely that we will have some form of governance further on. How that's going to look, it's still a little unclear, because we sort of want, well, we definitely want the network to become live and start growing. So we know that there's stability within that, but there are options that we've started looking at to create it, because you can see there's lots of DAOs coming out in the space, and some of them are becoming very successful, showing that the concept of having decentralized governance, not only in voting for different pathways of a project to go down, or proposals for things, but also there is more sort of management side of DAOs that are evolving. One of them that we've used recently is Coordinate, which you might have heard or seen that. It was founded by the Yearn finance team. And it's essentially a way that you can allow people in your community to reward others from a pool of a team budget or rewards, to actually give back to members adding value. So without a central person that's basically like, oh, hey, I'm the one who pays people based on what I think their value is that they're providing. It's actually a voting side in a democratic way, which is really cool. And that's evolving within our team too. So that's one aspect we're going into already. But once we get more formal with that, we'll definitely announce some plans and explore some ideas. But there's really, really, really interesting use cases already out there, and structures for DAOs that are showing a lot of promise. And so we'd like to, definitely be open to that too. That question was from Pabanto on Twitter or Discord, I think. All right, let's hop to another one. Could you better explain the concept and implementation of clandestine mode? That's from Ronnie Barkin on Twitter. Yeah, definitely. This is sort of an ultimate goal for MASQ. We know it's not going to be easy, and we talk about it a lot because we want to keep it firmly focused in front of us that is the end goal, because clandestine by definition, means that the software will be running for a user, but anyone on the outside looking in will not know that that user is running MASQ. So that's the fundamental flaw right now of other solutions in the space, of traditional VPNs, of the Tor network, of different forms of onion routing. Most of those, if not all of them, rely on existing tech and existing protocols, which can be detected. If not by pattern analysis, it could be done by DPI, which stands for Deep Packet Inspection. The most sophisticated and advanced firewall in the world exists in China. We all know that. They call it the Great Firewall. They're successful because their DPI and all of those methods is very, very, very precise at defining how to look at packets and figure out where they're coming and going. So for Clandestine to be possible, you have to have, from what we've analyzed so far, 6 hops from the user to the end server where the person wants their data or their content and back. So 6 hops means that 6 other nodes are going to be on the route. 6 other users are going to be routing that traffic and handing it off. But also 6 other nodes are now part of that incentivization monetization model. So Clandestine will be possible. It's just making sure that it's routed correctly. So the concept of that with the 6 hops is that any node in the middle or on the end, if you plucked out that packet of data, you won't be able to know who it came from, and you won't be able to know where it was going. Even if you could look at inspect what's in the packet, which is impossible through normal secure encryption now, like mainstream encryption methods, which we use, they won't be able to know where it came from, where it's going. But further to that, the packet's going to look like another type of data. So in a way, we were playful with the name MASQ when we first found it because it was also part of the word masquerade, where you're masquerading in costume as something else. So part of the Clandestine concept and model is going to be that before data is routed from a user to the network, it's going to be covered in a packet shell, if you will, that makes it look like normal traffic on the internet. And most normal traffic on the internet has very obvious low ports or commonly used ports in and out of routers and connections. Some of those that you guys might know of is 443, which is HTTP, 22, which is Telnet. There's game packets for Call of Duty. There's millions and millions of Call of Duty players out there. They use a common port. So basically the node software will cover this data in a shell that makes it look like some other packet of data, put it through a normal port, but the other user is going to be getting it and they're going to take off the first layer and say, oh, I know this is definitely, going through the MASQ network. Here's the next node I got to send it to. And then it goes through, does the 6 hops back, there and back. And I guess as you'd say in some countries, Bob's your uncle. You've got Clandestine. That is a lot harder to do than I, kind of outlined, but that's part of the challenge. So it's quite an extensive part of the goal. So, there's a lot of parts to design and make sure it works. But essentially, that's how it's going to work. Is it possible? Definitely. Are we confident we can solve it? Yes. It's just a matter of time. So the way we can get there is for all of you listening to continue to support us, to jump in and do testing, to refer us to any other skilled, developers who love the idea of our concept of internet freedom and love open source development. Please encourage them to come check us out. And actually, most of our team are freedom fighters. We know we're doing this, we're not exactly running millions and millions of dollars of funding through and running it with payrolls and things. Traditionally, we just have people who contribute. So that's how Clandestine is going to work. Bit of a long-winded answer, but I wanted to give you guys as much detail as you can so you can further understand it as well. Let's see. Before I take one more, anyone brave enough to have a voice question? There's lots of people listening.
Minimum specification for running a node, in case people aren't aware.
Nice. Yes. Good question. So it's not a hardware heavy software or program. So the good news is for most of you, you don't need a high tech, high spec computer with lots of RAM, lots of hard drive space. We're going to slim down the installer, so it's not going to be huge and build in as much as we can, but keep it slim. So you're not going to hard drive space and computing power won't be a big issue. Really, what the main specification you need to consider is just your internet connection. So your upload and download speed and your reliability. Part of this automap thing that we're having to spend a lot of time developing, and why it's important too, is that we know from testing as well, and also for some of us that look at the network overall in the world, lots of ISPs change people's public IP address from time to time. You're not going to notice it as the user. You might just be sitting at home running YouTube or streaming some games or playing games or whatever, and your ISP may change your public IP address from one number to another, and you won't even know. But if things running on your machine don't know, it can break connections with things that are trying to communicate with you. So So with that's leading into me saying you don't need a static IP either. I guess it's beneficial if you want to have one. Some people do have one, and a static IP means that your public IP address stays the same. But I'm telling you guys that who are interested in testing, don't rush out and buy a static IP from your ISP provider. Sometimes they charge you for it. You don't have to go and do that because the work's going in, to take care of that. But that's part of what we're working on. So no high specs for hardware. Really, it's just about internet. But maybe there's lots of people that'll go run out and upgrade to fiber now. But yeah, if you have a great connection, that's going to help. Because essentially nodes are going to want to route traffic through to people who have a fast connection, low latency, and reliable uptime. So those things are going to be part of it. Thanks for that. Kind of breaks it up from just me chatting all morning to you guys. And while we're taking a few more questions, I'll give you guys another sneak peek. Let's see. This is our beautiful dashboard for the Gemini software. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Nice. So have a good look at that. There's some really, really cool dynamics going in there. There's already a V3 that's being developed and worked on to make a further version, condense it down a little bit, make it a little prettier. There's a lot of work going into that too, but it's coming along really, really nice. And not to say anything, in a bad light about other projects out there, I have checked out almost all of them who have an open consumable version. I do think ours is the nicest looking, and ours looks like it's the easiest to use. But I'll let that speak for itself and the community speak for that when they can try it and give us their feedback as well. Hopefully.
So the question is, if you load MASQ, right, on a network, and the gas fees on Ethereum are expensive, you can gain MASQ by running the network, as I understand, right? But initially, is there any way to lower the gas fee or, I don't know, make it cheaper in use?
Yeah, very good question. I think that also is one of the questions on our list here. So thanks for that. Was that Destroyer?
Yep.
Nice. Well, hopefully ETH 2.0 will destroy the gas fee problem. But until then, we do have some things.
Let's hope
Yeah. Until then, we do have some solutions on there. So just to give you guys a little bit more insight into how that's going to work. Number one, there is a user input. I think it's going to go into the advanced settings of our Gemini release, where you can set your desired gas price. So if you want to set your software to only send the transactions for the nodes that you're using, when a gas is a certain price, you can set it to that. The only thing is, if you set it too low, then basically your debt that you owe may not get paid, and so eventually you may not be able to route any more traffic. So, it is a setting that you may be able to set, but we want to make it more automatic than that. So there's several functions going on in the software that help with that. So to keep what we call balancing the books, where you're getting paid for your software routing of other users in the network and then other users that you're consuming from, to keep all those books balanced and those transactions sent. MASQ isn't going to send lots of little tiny transactions every single time, and then it all gets eaten up or congested in the network on Ethereum currently. It's going to only send it on certain thresholds. So right now there's two triggers in the software. The first is after a certain time period. So if a debt has been pending for a certain length of time, it'll wait until it hits that time before considering it to be sent through the network to pay other nodes. The second part is a threshold of an amount. So let's say you have a neighbor node that you're connected to that's close, and you're using them quite a bit. You might rack up quite a bit of MASQ that you owe them. It's going to hit a certain threshold and then essentially pay that debt. So that might hit a certain amount where it needs to be paid, and then of course that will trigger the transaction. But we're really mindful of gas fees because it can become a massive bottleneck, especially if there's an NFT gas war like that you can see happening right now. Right now I'm looking, gas is 220 for a fast transaction. I mean, that's pretty crazy right now. So we want to make it that's not going to stop the network from working, because that would be horrible if everyone's nodes start banning each other because none of the transactions go through to pay each other. So we're building functions within the monetization. But leading into a second question that is from a few people on our question list, are there other chains, L2 solutions, or other types of networks that will help for scaling and for gas fees? So the answer is yes. Yes. I've personally talked with the Polygon team, actually. And so if we haven't mentioned it before, you guys are hearing it first here on the AMA. I did meet with them several weeks ago. They were quite excited to hear that I wanted to reach out to them. I'm not saying that we've chosen them, so please don't take it like literally that we're going to do that. But it's very likely we're going to look at an L2 chain that may be ready for the public release, because, who knows, maybe 2.0, ETH 2.0 will be quite far away, or there's other things to consider. We'd rather not be reliant on one network only to be able to make the software work. So that's something that we've started engaging more in. There's other solutions out there too, which we started a bit of horizon planning on. You guys might have seen Optimism is starting to roll out, and they're starting to scale their solutions. There's some other technologies which are interesting, ZK rollups and proofs, those types of things that could make it more secure, but also bundle transactions, things like that. So we're being open-minded, but we are very conscious of the gas and the problems that causes. So that hopefully will settle everyone's mind that we're not just going to try and force a release on ETH chain if the gas is absolutely crazy, because it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be fun for anyone. Any other brave voice questions here live?
Yes. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Hi, this is NQ. I wanted to ask two questions, if I may.
Sure.
First, uh, is there going to be a mask specific exchange? That's a question that, continues the idea of monetization so that people can sell or even buy more simply, so this whole process will be easier for people.
Sure, I'll try and answer that now. Right now, we haven't really done much planning on that, and the reason is mainly because if we were to approach that and sort of build some form of exchange or decentralized, you know, platform for trading, I guess we would want to do it right, which would require quite a lot of development resources. Like, I guess you could argue you could just fork a version of Uniswap and then try and build it in. I mean, it is possible, but I feel like the potential development skill and capacity that we have now, we'd want to keep that within the developing the mass network software and not, divert it to a different type of feature like that. But that said, this is actually a current development part that we're talking about now actively for Gemini, which is going to be around how does someone easily acquire MASQ, for example. If they're a new user, they're going through the onboarding, they don't have MASQ tokens. How do they go about getting that? Super easy, super fast, hopefully a few clicks away, and just get some MASQ into their wallet because they obviously want to use the software. So that is really important because not only for adoption, we want it to be as easy to be onboarded as a new user, fresh out of the ether of the crypto space where they don't have MASQ, they can get it easy. So we've looked at a few ways to do that. We've talked with a few partners too. I won't name drop them, but some of them might be listening. But we've talked about some creative ideas that we could make, hopefully build it right into the Gemini software, um, which would be cool. Hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, yeah, it does. I was talking about, theoretically as a part of the ecosystem, not now on actually putting all the efforts in it as a project. But it's good that you guys are thinking about it. My second question, or even let's say comment, is that I know I talked to you guys before about how the software is very hard to hack, but you guys need to actually, you as developers, to keep as private as and anonymous as you can be at this stage. Because let's say that Bitcoin right now is unhackable, but if somehow someone would have known who is Satoshi Nakamoto is, if China knew who he was, they would take care of not Bitcoin, but they would have didn't take care of him. I'm hoping that you guys are just taking precautions and actually, uh, keeping yourself anonymous and far away as you can, and being clandestine by yourselves. Because when this will get popular, because the software thing it will be unhackable. People are always hackable.
Right.
So, are you taking any steps to actually secure yourself?
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And I know you're coming from a very kind place with that question. So and I've talked with you before. So thanks a lot for your concern there too. And I will say that even just starting to do voice things like this, it was a bit of a step for me. I kind of did it because I thought, well, look, I really think the community needs to hear from the project lead, not just in text or written articles. It's got to become more human because let's face it, we're building this software for the fellow human, to share our freedom. So if you think about it, it is a bit of an oxymoron situation or paradox, I guess you could say. To build freedom, I have to remain anonymous, and it's kind of weird to actually think about that and talk about that. But you're absolutely right, because the minute you have a target on a powerful concept or project that big, powerful entities may not like, you do have to be careful. Um, I've definitely taken steps personally. Of course, I just use my my online handle as so people know me as KauriHero, and I'm fairly, I guess you could say I'm fairly anonymous at the moment, but we do one day need to work out how the project itself evolves to become an organization. And that's going to be something that we keep talking about. I will admit the Fair Launch Summit that Alchemist hosted was brilliant because hopefully Church is in our in our AMA right now. He was paneling that section about legal framework and ramifications of starting certain projects in the space and how that ties into legal side of it and government regulation and things like that. But on the other side of it, keeping ourselves safe as well, I also need to make sure that if something happens to me, who's a key team member or the project lead, that the project can continue. So we've got redundancies put in place, just so you as a community know. Team-related funds and things are behind multi-sigs, so there's several people that can access. The code is open source. There's many local copies that are saved. I encourage lots of you too, if you're listening and you have a GitHub account, please fork the repo, fork the node repo. We want people to have it. So there's a decentralized form of our software knowledge out there in the space, because what you guys may have seen that recently we had a weird thing happen where they took our repo to private. They took our whole MASQ organization to private. And it was purely because a bunch of users starred our repo, which it might have looked spammy. I can understand GitHub might have flagged it for that. But I asked them, I said, well, hey, that's a weird attack vector, right? Like, what if I just hopped on Brave's repo and spun up 100 bots and I just liked their repo with the star 100 times, and then you took all of Brave's repos down and made them private? Like that's kind of a strange way to attack a project, but it's a real risk, of that. So I encourage everyone, try and fork our repo. Go ahead and fork a repo. It's real easy. We've also got it mirrored onto GitLab, so there's a working copy off of GitHub as well as local repos on people's computers. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about, right? Because you've got to make sure you can remain pseudo-anonymous, but then at some point, you have to create an organization that can manage things. So that's why I think a DAO structure is probably the best way to go about that, and it decentralizes authority. Really, that's what the purpose is. But thanks for that question. That's actually a really good question. Any other ideas or questions on voice?
Here are a few quick questions. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. So first of all, what can we do to help? I love this project. I'm sure that others do this as well. So what can we do to help? Secondly, there was this thing about how are you protecting yourself? So I'm also asking, how do we protect the users? Mainly, when a user first buys a MASQ token, they may be exposed, for example, if they buy using credit card or anything like that. So if there's anything like a mixer or whatever that can be used, offered to protect that, end user.
Yeah, good question. Good question. Interesting questions. Well, the first part was about protecting the users.
Like, how can you?
Well, actually, sorry. First, you said, how can you help? Definitely jump in the channels. Get active with the community. Most of the team are really eager to answer questions and engage with anyone who wants to talk about the project. So Discord has just come alive in the last few months, and I have to thank a lot of team members as well for helping make that happen, which is really, really cool. I'm, not to rubbish Telegram, but I love living in Discord now. I can coordinate with the team really well, and I'm able to just look in areas where people are chatting about different things and just chat with the team and community members. So if you want to help, jump in there. Put your hand up for testing. We also have shortlisted some people already for testing the Neo versions, and they've done some of that. And of course, we like to hand out some MASQ to people who are really helping with testing. But also the test channels, we make those open for people who also test as well. But number one thing as well, if you're not technical minded or you're not into the coding side, spread the word on social media. Tag people or accounts that you feel are proponents for freedom online. You don't have to go after the big leagues like A-listers of freedom, like you look at Snowden and Julian Assange and even Kim.com, who doesn't live very far away from me here in New Zealand. Sure, tag those big guys, but they get thousands and thousands and thousands of tags and posts and all that. You could just spread it to anyone who you feel is talking about freedom and censorship, because this is a human problem that we have. It's not a technical problem in the world. The human problem of censorship is actually bigger than us. It's bigger than the tech. So you can spread the word like that and just tell people, hey, look, not shilling, not financial advice. Check out MASQ. They're really trying to free the internet. Things like that. It sounds like it's small to some people. Oh, I'm just one guy with 100 followers or whatever. But it creates a movement, and there's some amazing things that have happened online like that. So that's definitely one way to help too. And educate yourself about privacy and others around you. Not everyone has to be a MASQ user. I'd love for everyone to be a MASQ user, but number one, from me, this is like personal message. Crypto's not going away. Regulation is trying to pressure the space because they don't know how else to control it. But trust me, our kids and our grandkids are not going to know what cash is. They're not going to know what a bank account is. I guarantee, this is firmly a belief of mine, that crypto is going to be a way of the future. So the more you educate yourself now about how it works, but most importantly, how to protect yourself online and how to protect your assets online. Whereas with bank accounts, you can run to the bank if someone hacks your credit card or blah, blah, blah. Crypto is very different. It's open and decentralized, but that also means that you have to take responsibility for your freedom and your privacy. So MASQ helps to do that. And this kind of leads on to your other question. If MASQ is being purchased or swapped for by a user, how do they protect themselves? And in a way, we as a team or as a software can't really always be that protection barrier because the user is the one that's making those choices. So if you go online and you put your credit card in to buy anything, that's a trace, whether you realize it or not. Probably the most biggest, when you talk big data, the first thing that comes to mind is Google, but a lot of people don't realize that almost as big is Visa, MasterCard, Stripe, all those companies that do processing of payments through credit lines, bank accounts, and financial institutions. That's big data. You want to talk about a footprint online? You look up someone's credit card and you can tell everything they do in their life. So first thing, I guess for me, I would say do not buy anything online with a credit card that you do not want linked to you, because that's something that external people can't control, right? That's sort of your choices and your making in your financial decisions and how you deal with your money. But are there ways to get MASQ in a decentralized way? Sure. A funny but interesting way to do it, and we're trying to keep it healthy in our channel, but the tip bot is actually quite a funny and interesting way to distribute MASQ, I think you could say, right? Because, if you have a Discord account, it might only be tied to an email, right? But you can use an Ethereum wallet and send MASQ and give MASQ to someone else, or like do some help with the community and earn a bit of MASQ there and get tipped it. There's no personal information really linked to that, which is an example of how MASQ can circulate, as well as many other cryptos. And then the last bit you asked was about a mixing service or something. I can't really endorse or sort of name any mixers, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for people unless you know what you're doing. There are services out there that can mix crypto, and there's privacy-based crypto, like ones that you can look up that you can trade and move and swap without a trace. How you do that, is really up to you. But in terms of what the team controls, like what we build into our software, we're preferring that we do it in the most decentralized way possible. So I wouldn't say to expect any fiat on-ramps in the foreseeable future, because that's kind of contrary to what we're about, right? Because if you're saying, hey, use MASQ and you can browse with a lot of safety, there's a lot of privacy, and in effect, your traffic can't be routed and logged. But hey, buy some crypto with your credit card because that's attached to your name. I think it wouldn't necessarily work well if we opened out with that. So that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So if people were expecting a fiat on-ramp, I'm sorry, we can't really go that route at the moment. But there's very, very interesting ways you could approach that within the software. So we're looking at those as well. But shout out to Mr. X. You want to do any trades with protection, hop on to Mr. X because MASQ is supported on there, and it taps into both our pools on Uniswap and SushiSwap. So there's some extra protection already there if you guys want to get your hands on some MASQ.
So in terms of spreading the word, would you? I'm sorry, you're finished with that question, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. Thanks.
Yeah. So I just a question in relation to that. What is your plan marketing wise once the software is fully released?
Good question. Marketing. Marketing is quite a broad area because there's lots of ways you can do it, right? And if you have funds you put into certain marketing efforts, you can definitely spread the word in different ways. So I think what part of our strategy now that we're sort of forecasting out is we feel like partnerships are really, really good. And some of those we've started have been really received really well, because we're trying to look for partners that share common interests with us in terms of privacy in the space, creating a decentralized ecosystem and things working together. So we want to pursue a lot of that in terms of something that you might want to label marketing. But we also rely a lot on organic marketing. So with our social channels such as Twitter and YouTube and our official chats like Telegram and Discord, we want to grow those channels too, but do it in an organic way and holistically where people are coming on board because they like what they see, they like our software. And I think once that public release happens, you'll definitely see that happen more rapidly. But marketing it's a really broad area. You could do lots of things, and to be fair, you can spend a lot of money and sometimes not get a lot of value back. So we're trying to do justice to the team resources as well with that for the community as well. But I'm just getting pinged by our marketing lead as well. We're also reaching to non-crypto resources to introduce them to MASQ because MASQ really, once this goes live, it is the future. It's a huge future-proof type of technology. And there's tons of freedom fighters out there, not to mention a huge use case, which we I've started a bit of strategy planning with the marketing team, but the journalist industry, that is a huge area that they need this. There's places in the world where if you report something on social media and the government sees it, you're in jail or worse, and you might just be a freelance journalist that's trying to report on the ground oppression, and it's real. So that's almost a motivation for us to make the software as secure as possible because those are the types of users that will actually use it for their livelihood, for their use of freedom of speech. But those types of freedom fighters, we are going to actively engage with and market with and get the word out about us as well. We also want to do, more interviews. I want to get on some more AMAs and podcasts and cross-platform, cross-project type of chats. We want to advertise in the same place as VPNs. I think we deserve, once the software's, grown a good degree where the network is stable, I think we deserve a slice of the VPN market, without a doubt, because we could throw around numbers and how many billions are spent on the VPN market, but let's be fair, that it's a flawed technology now, and it's not safe to use in some places. In fact, that's what people get in jail for, is using a VPN now, right? So that's somewhere we want to go as well. And just, doing those types of advertising in places that will allow us to advertise. There are places that won't allow crypto-based things to advertise, but we'll get around that as well.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah. But anything else on those questions that you wanted me to talk about?
Here's a quick one.
Yeah.
Maybe jumping to far high, that when the software is done, could we possibly see MASQ in a box? Like, will there be something like a Raspberry Pi installation? And if so, I'll be just handing them to every person I know, basically, to all friends and family.
God bless you, sir. We had a joke one day about, I might have mentioned this on one of our chats or AMAs. Our lead tech advisor, he was saying we could have a concept of a node grenade, a MASQ node grenade, where it's a Raspberry Pi with a lithium battery built into it, and you throw it somewhere where it's running, and people can connect to it and all connect on a mesh network. And then if it dies or whatever, no, it doesn't matter. But you could launch heaps of these grenades everywhere, and people can connect. And then once the network's all connected, then this connections stay together. So, I mean, the world is our oyster with the way that the software is made. Right now, the software is already Dockerized, which I believe would still work, because one of our long-term community members made it in sort of a very easy to deploy Docker image, so you could sort of cross-compile it on any platform. It should cross-compile on a Raspberry Pi. Just we haven't tested it exclusively in the last month, so there could be dependency issues, because I know Raspberry runs a different. It's an ARM architecture, but you could probably run it pretty easy if you gave it a crack. But in terms of offering hardware from the team, I think we probably aren't equipped to do that ourselves, but we would totally encourage the community to do it. And we do actually want to produce binaries that are for the ARM architecture, single board computers type of thing. So we're going to set up pipelines that not only put out binaries for Windows, Mac OS, Linux, but hopefully one that will run on Raspberry Pi out of a binary. So keep an eye on for that. But if you have experience that you want to help and contribute to that, that'd be awesome too.
In terms of Gemini, I know you don't give time frames, but if you were to estimate completion-wise, would you say we're 80% the way there, 90%? What kind of, how far along are we?
Good question. Who was that? Who
That
asked?
was me, Ab.
Oh, yeah,
How you
cool.
doing?
No, I
Yeah.
just wanted to say thanks. Yeah, I think we've done well not giving dates, and it's frustrating, because I honestly have to hold my tongue sometimes, or I have to grab the tongue of my marketing guys and say, wait, we don't want to give something that might, I don't know, like hurt our reputation when something's not met. So yes,
I get that.
you guys get it. We've got a good culture. That I did skip ahead because I got quite excited with some of the demos and talking with you guys. But I had written here a note to give you guys an update on where we're at. Where is it here? But essentially, we are probably 85% done with Gemini. And the remaining percent is the stuff I've talked about, like connecting the components together in the back end, building that dashboard that's hopefully still on the screen, that beautiful dashboard that we have, and AutoMap, which is the port forwarding. So those are really close. And then I can share, I just had a little update from our tech team and some of the devs working on AutoMap. They said it's 90% done at the moment.
Nice.
So we're really, really close. Like, obviously it's exciting, and I sort of would love to give a date, but it's sort of ready when those things are ready. But we're so close. So that's probably why that is why we're making that YouTube video live today, shortly after the AMA, so everyone can sort of see it. But you guys got to see it first, which is pretty cool. And yeah, so we're really close with that stuff. Really close.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. And if you want, I think we do have some spots free for some testing. So we may even open a little channel or a forum, like if you do have just some limited experience in sort of troubleshooting or debugging, or any type of, any type of background in that you could help with. We may have a few spots free for, a private testing and different rounds of testing. And I'm looking into making a series of POAP badges, maybe even with some little some artist artist contributions as well, where we'll issue POAP badges for testers. So you could sort of build up your ranks and show like, hey, look at me, I've done 5 rounds of testing, and I'm an experienced node warrior now, and have some rewards built into that too. So keep an eye out for that as well, because I love that stuff that gets people engaged. Oh, sorry, someone said the dashboard has come off. Yeah, any other audio questions? I much prefer the audio questions, team. So I mean, if you guys can, or if you're not, if it's not super late in your house, feel free to sing out with some questions.
Hey, Kauri.
Hey, mate.
Quick one. Has there been any thought about making the application like modular, or allow people to build apps that can be attached to Gemini, for example?
Very good question. It's actually good I got the dashboard back up. Can you all see the dashboard here on the screen?
No.
No.
It's just loading for me. So.
Oh, sorry. Let me see if I can load that again. Is that up?
Yeah, that's
Just loading.
Sweet. So you will see a little icon tab here called My dApps. So that's a little preview, because we are very conscious that, while the MASQ software is amazing, it's going to give us a fundamental network layer to operate private traffic, essentially. We want to build that as an ecosystem. So we do want to ship some extra utility with the software. We want to ship some features that go along with it. So we're actually being very creative with some of these things, and I can't sort of give too much alpha. But there are things that people have mentioned already, that people have requested, and even some questions on the thread that we're looking at putting in to the software. So I've given a few hints. But essentially, we do want to have dApps as an ecosystem. So part of the chats we're going to have, like I mentioned, partnerships and talking with other projects with common interests and goals and things, those will probably be the types that we'll look at partnering with, maybe that they could have something that would incorporate into the software as a dApp. And so when I say as a dApp, essentially what we're going to be achieving is that any data you put across the dApp will go across the MASQ network. So if someone said to us, from another project, hey, I've got a decentralized voting platform that I want to make sure if people vote, they're not going to expose their IP to their ISP provider or anyone watching, because maybe we're a sensitive project and we don't want people who are voting to have a way that they've interacted with the site or whatever. So they could have their DApp or, an SDK or whatever, or even a set of APIs run through the software in a DApp portal. So the dot is put across MASQ network, which means that you get some extra layers of privacy. So anyone maybe looking at that person's machine is not going to know that they interacted with the voting platform. Or even just for crypto, maybe someone wants to, still remain part of the Chinese mafia and use Binance because they don't mind KYC. Well, there's a lot of users that don't want to do that. So maybe you want to use other networks or other platforms, but make sure your traffic isn't detected to be going to those servers. So you could access it through MASQ. Another thing is that with Electron, the way we're deploying our app for the end user, it is built on Chromium. So that could mean we could have other features built in. And that's a possibility. But I won't say too much more about that because we're sort of exploring that. But we want to make it, easy to build for other dApps or other projects to be able to leverage the network. But that was a great question. And hey, listen, in the chat, we've got an ideas channel as well. If you or any of you, your friends or anyone into crypto, if you guys think of any projects or ideas for features and things like that, but more importantly, projects that sort of share a lot of qualities or vision that MASQ does, and you want to see that as a partner or maybe as a first dApp, or one of the first suite of dApps that is in our software or in our network, drop their name or give us a contact of them, because who knows, we could start a discussion with them and see where that goes. There's lots of projects there that would probably really love to leverage the tech. So be creative. Man, we've gone some good time on this, just over an hour. I might just do one or two more questions, and I'll quickly scan the ones we got on Twitter, see if there's any more important, other important ones that I should cover. But feel free to sing out on voice. This is probably one of your last chances to ask any more if you guys have some. I think we answered that. I think it's worth answering this one too. It's come up and people have asked about it as well. And it is a legitimate question. Can MASQ be abused by criminals? Or I guess you could also add to that question, could be used for unethical things. And I guess the question we could ask back to someone who's fielding that to us is, how can you make something fully decentralized and fully free if you're controlling what people do? And I don't mean that in an ignorant way that we want to turn a blind eye to what we know is morally and ethically wrong. Okay, and we can rattle off all the bad things online that people put on there, that people do on there, that we all would agree in this channel and in this chat that is morally wrong, right? The thing is, though, if you start blocking and censoring things within a network that's supposed to be uncensorable, you have quite a big issue there. And like you could say, well, how far do you go? And in a way, it's kind of like what you see now with certain moves with regulation or certain moves in world governments and liberties and reduction of liberty. Once things start degrading, once freedoms start degrading, it can very quickly become a slippery slope. So what we want to build in as best we can is to the software and network, keep it decentralized, but give the user the freedom of setting what they would like their node to serve, essentially. So I guess we could all easily agree in this chat, in this audience, that something like pedophilia or something bad, child, human trafficking, bad things like that, we don't want that on our network. So we could have a way that that users could blacklist certain known IPs or certain servers that they know may be hosting this bad stuff, or things like that, where they have control over what people may put through if they're an exit node. When it comes to routing traffic between nodes, it's all encrypted. So essentially, it's really only a control for exit nodes, because if you're routing a packet from one node to another, you're not going to know what's in it. And let's face it, you're just a user probably sitting online and doing some cool stuff on your computer. You're not going to know what's going in and out of your router, out of your node routing. It could be things that are questionable, but you're also not going to be necessarily responsible for it because you don't know what's in the packet and it's encrypted. You can't access it. So essentially it would operate like Tor does, and they have a very, very good, I think, robust side from them, where I think they've had quite a few lawyers on an international level write up that someone's not liable if they're a Tor router, or what they call a Tor node that's routing traffic, because they're not handling the data. So essentially, we would operate on the same way, but we definitely don't want to make the software a use case for bad things and for criminals. So we'll build in decentralized ways as best we can, and make it basically like have it self-policed in a way where people can as a group know what's good and what's bad, and just leave the decision to the users of what they do. That's probably the only other question I wanted to grab from the list here. Anyone else? Awesome. Well, that will wrap that up for the AMA. I hope I answered most of your questions, and we had a lot of good ones on the thread. If there's any other ones we may have missed, I can take it to the chat later today. But it was really awesome. I love how many people were in here. Hopefully you guys and gals have started getting your POAPs as well. And if you have missed it, or you're watching this online, we're going to release this for people to watch later. There is some further claim codes for people watching this, where you can go to this website and claim it through the QR code as well. Scan the screen if you want, get that QR code, get your POAP. This is a little POAP. That's the image that you'll be receiving as the badge. And within 24 hours, we're going to do a raffle as well. There's 3 winners for people attending and who have got the POAP badge. So if you get stuck with anything, jump into our channels, chat with our admins. But yeah, we really love all the engagement. Thank you to all of you guys and girls in the community supporting us all this time, helping us test, helping us develop, giving us feedback. We want you all to know that this is for you as well and the world with this software, because without us all contributing, it's not going to be as a success as it should be. So the more that you guys can help engage and share this idea and share this out in socials and in the community and educate each other, the better it's going to be, because we're all in it together, really. But thanks for all your support. Thanks for attending. We'll jump into the chat. If you need anything, just ping us. And thanks again for attending, guys and gals. We appreciate it.
Awesome presentation. Yeah, I was very impressed. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later. Have a great weekend.